Hello everyone and welcome to Premier League Today. After another of those headline-making rounds of action, no doubting the side who would like to be out of those headlines right now. Another bad week for Arsenal and Arsene Wenger. But let's get some global perspective on this story. We're delighted to welcome BBC Africa sports reporter Janine, who lives in Lagos in Nigeria, where Arsenal have a particularly strong fan base. Janine, welcome to the programme and thanks for joining us. Tell us first of all, actually, how did this love affair with Nigeria in particular and Arsenal start with?
It's good to be on the show, and it's not particularly a good time to talk about Arsenal because lots of fans are still reeling here in Nigeria. But, it had to do a lot with the fact that, having to travel to the UK, most Nigerians get settled in London. They had to support literally the biggest club at the time there in England. And Arsenal just, rings a bell. And then Kanu Nwankwo joined that club and, performed wonders. And basically a lot of fans joined Arsenal from then on. And it's really interesting because Arsenal is the bedrock of many other clubs here in Nigeria. You have Chelsea fans and you have Manchester City fans, yes. But most of them had to migrate from Arsenal to Chelsea and Manchester City because it followed after the Invincibles, after all of the successes. And then it looked like, there was lots of drought. Most of them had to migrate from Arsenal to join those other clubs. So this love affair started with, of course, lots of travel to England and specifically staying in London. But, Kanu Nwankwo and the likes of other African stars, very relatable stars in Arsenal, really cemented that love affair. And it's just unfortunate that that love is really running sour.
And that alludes to my next question. Dare I say the pain then is being felt there more than anywhere else?
It is, because it's a running joke. I mean, there's a lot happening in the economy, and a couple of people say all of a sudden Arsenal fans are talking about the economy. Talk about your club. But the worst part of everything is the fact that there aren't the butt of jokes for the likes of West Ham fans in Nigeria, and by the way, Nigeria is the biggest black nation in the world. So if you have that number of Arsenal fans, they're in their numbers, right? No, so they are not being, mocked by West Ham fans or Aston Villa fans or Spurs fans, maybe some Chelsea. They are mocked by fans of the big European clubs. I mean, from Barcelona, you do not want to hear that. Real Madrid, you move over to Italy, you have Juventus, and then Manchester United, Chelsea. So it's really, really, really a torrid time for them. And the conversation around how they can move. In fact, in Nigerian media, it's a post-Arsene Wenger era. Basically, it's not about the results. It's about who gets called up, who gets his job, when does he get the boot. It's like a timeline. We can't wait, and that's how far removed the fans are, especially with the poor results that have been lingering for a while. And it's not just the poor results; it's the fact that there's just something monumentally wrong somewhere. The first conversation was there was no money. They couldn't spend, and then they started spending. And the silver wasn't coming in. And then it was about the FA Cup. They weren't winning anything. They started winning the FA Cup. Yet there's just this cloud. There's just this thing that it's not the money. It's not the trophy. Then what exactly is it?
Yeah. OK, Janine, stay there for us. We'll get more from you in a second or two. Just to further highlight that level of feeling from Nigeria, let's hear from Taiwo from Lagos in Nigeria, who launched a passionate defence of the under-pressure Gunners manager on Fan Zone on Sunday.
Arsene Wenger is not an animated coach. He's not a manager that comes on the sideline and become loud like Jurgen Klopp or Antonio Conte. He says to these players, it speaks to them. He's a tactician. He doesn't come on the pitch and keep repeating the same thing they've done in the training and the locker room. I am particular about the players. What do you want to be remembered for when you play on the pitch? As a child, you come... you go to the academy, you have the talent to pick you, and you get on the pitch. You have this opportunity to become one of the biggest players in the world, and you are so lackadaisical. As Arsenal, they're a team, not Arsene Wenger. These players are trying to get behind the Wenger out, Wenger out. You need to perform on the pitch. You need to play football. You need to use your body, use your head. You need intelligence. You need a very good IQ. You don't come and just keep playing week in, week out, losing games and getting paid. This is not about Arsene Wenger no more. Arsenal FC is a big club. When you're playing for a club like Arsenal, you play football.
Interesting that you can feel the level of passion in his voice as well. As far as Teo is concerned, the players also have to take some responsibility. So are the fans there split between where the blame should lie here, between Arsene Wenger and his players?
Absolutely. There are like three sections of fans and blame game. So the first section is absolutely what Taiwo says. There's a section of fans who believe that, yes, the players are pretty much culpable for some of the results. You just don't see them giving 100% half the time. And he mentioned the fact that, maybe, as Wenger, some of these players are taking advantage of the fact that he's not as rigid. He's very flexible. He's more of a man manager. And then he gets to, produce talent to, the senior national team, or of course the club or the starting 11 or the squad. But there's another section of fans who don't believe that. I mean, if you look at England, for example, producing young stars and all of that, not all of them are coming from Arsenal. In fact, most of those players have moved on to other clubs. So that's the other conversation. And for most of these other fans who are part of the Wenger outcry, and it's a lot influenced on social media, by the way. They see, the banner flying in the stadium. They see it on Twitter, Wenger, and people begin to think, since I was born, I have never seen any other coach. And it's a very young population here in Nigeria. So it's like they look around them, they look at Man City, look at Chelsea, there are younger coaches, and Arsene Wenger seems not to get it right. And if you look at all the players, the Aubameyangs and the Alexis Sanchez and the Mesut Ozil, they were adored in other clubs. How come they moved to Arsenal and it seems the level has dropped? And there's that intriguing third section. Interestingly, they do believe that the heydays of when Arsenal had a spine, a black spine. How do I put it now? Like when they had the Kanu Nwankwo and the Ibu and the Kolo Toure who were very, mentally strong, because that's a lot of what people say. It feels like their mentality is really, really poor. They always wait for defeat. There's no reaction. And a couple of fans, I was hearing the other day just saying, if they had the strong, black players that they used to have at the time, you can't beat Arsenal, in the local punch. You can't beat them the way, you beat them now and all of that. So there are three split fans. And again, time will tell. Everyone is just going to wait for summer all over again.
See, talking about those individuals, it's the leadership qualities that those players used to bring, and how far away we are from that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand what Janine's saying. I personally don't think it's the colour or the ethnicity of the players involved. I think what you said, Manish, is the key bit. It's about leadership. It doesn't matter who is there.
No, but that does still strike a chord, though, of course, in that part of the world.
Of course it does. And, obviously, people in Nigeria, I'm sure, remember black players like Patrick Vieira, Kolo Toure, who were hugely influential for Arsenal. But that was then and this is now. And I think the big problem for Arsenal now is having that kind of leadership that maybe a Vieira, a Kolo Toure gave Arsenal in the past. Gave any team, to be honest with you, because without leadership, teams are in trouble. And, clearly there's no leadership off the pitch at Arsenal. Certainly at board level, because they're dithering over the future of the manager. The leadership from Wenger himself is for me a bit clouded because of his own situation. So consequently, you need the players in the dressing room to grab the situation and have some leadership from the dressing room. But there aren't that many leaders in that dressing room.
Daniel?
Yeah, to me, you can lead two ways. You can either lead through example or you can lead through sort of passion, chest beating. Manchester City don't really have a chest beating, captain. Vincent Kompany is a very passionate man, a very eloquent man, but he's not a John Terry style central defender.
He's not a Roy Keane.
No. But what they do is they lead through example, and they lead by being the best they can be. I think it's impossible to separate the first two sections that he mentioned out. It's impossible to overstate how much the drop-down effect of Stan Kroenke's, unwavering support of Wenger, of the kind of complicit complacency and the mediocrity that's surrounding that club. It's impossible to overstate how much that will get into a player's mind. If you're turning up to work every day and you think that your managers don't want the best for your business, even in any industry as an employee, it's very hard to be the best you can be, and you're very much working on a tunnelled personal pride. And there is some criticism that those players aren't doing that. But this idea of leadership, I think people assume has to be passion. It doesn't. You can lead by example, And the problem is they're doing neither at the moment.
What it goes to highlight is the level of strength Arsenal used to hold many years ago and how things have changed in recent seasons. Because I suppose ideologically, Arsenal has almost been a standard bearer as to how to live your life in Nigeria. Am I not wrong there, Janine?
I mean, today's Tuesday, so on Sunday, I'm sure there were a plethora of churches who use Arsenal as an anecdote and saying, in life, you can't always be high all the time. At some point, you find some poor patches like Arsenal is doing right now. I mean, you can literally hear that every time in churches, in motivational speeches. I'm like, oh, Lord. But, it just shows that there's this universal thing about Arsenal, whether it's their football, they just go beyond that. And apart from that, you also look at the commercial side of what their slump is doing. Lots of organizations and businesses center around that fan pool of Arsenal. And now that they're a little mom and they're really out there, so everything is there's a bit of a lull. And you just really have that feeling that the minute Arsenal rises to the top again, the minute they can solve all of their crises, the minute they can have some changes. For example, a radio station in Lagos put out a poll and said, like I said, in Nigeria, I suppose, Wenger era. So no one cares right now what Wenger is doing. Is how do they move on from there? So they put out a poll that said they put out 4 shortlists of the manager they wanted, to replace, or they want to replace Arsene Wenger. And Thierry Henry came out with 32% of the votes. In second place was Diego Simeone. In third place was Joachim Löw. And of course, in fourth place was Carlo Ancelotti. So you just see that the Arsenal fans here, not only they don't just want a move away, they also want someone they can relate to. Just the way it could be a hit and miss with other clubs, Pep Guardiola and Barcelona, what we are seeing with Gattuso and AC Milan. It's like if we have a Thierry Henry as well, we could relate to him. We may not get the trophies, we may not do all of that right now, but it's much more than going to be a publicity stunt. It's something that they feel that the club can benefit from. So here in Nigeria, it's a big anecdote for people to use Arsenal as a way of life, as a currency, literally.
Yeah.
But it just shows the stronghold of Arsenal here in Nigeria, as well as other parts of Africa.
That's absolutely fascinating, Janine. And it would be interesting also to find out what the feedback would be from Nigeria and Lagos in particular to news emanating in the press in today's papers in the UK. I think the Times have been reporting that Arsene Wenger is intimating he is going nowhere. He's digging his heels in. He's going to see out the rest of his contract until the end of next season, no matter what happens. What would the feedback or what would the reaction to that be?
I tell you what, nothing will change. A couple of days ago, I hung out with a couple of friends, a sports bar, and we're all talking, and then there were very passionate Arsenal fans who drew our attention, and we're arguing, and we're heartbroken, talking about the Manchester City win in the cup, and of course the Manchester City win in the Premier League, and the way they were talking, like, I will never support the club again. I want to distance myself. I need my cardio needs to be high up there and all of that. And then I asked and I said, you talk so passionately about Arsenal. How did you get all of the results? Since you said since that particular loss you stopped following Arsenal. He said, oh, I just called my friend to tell me the result. And I was like, you called your friends? You want to kill yourself? So if he still stays on, they will support that team through thick and thin. They will find ways, and you can see that in the signings. Aubameyang hushes things. Reduced ticket prices will hush things a bit. So it's still a love affair, despite the heartaches, really.
So sticking with them through thick or thin, or thin or thin, I think should be the same as things are right now.
Thick, thin.
Yeah. Listen, we have to leave it there with you, Janine. Thanks so much indeed for bringing us the perspective from Nigeria.
My pleasure, any day.
That's Janine Anthony, BBC sports reporter and presenter.